I am, guys, for the first 35 years of my life or so, I was incredibly prejudiced towards a lot of people. I did not have empathy for other human beings that were not just like me. It was taught to me. I was brought up around it. I feel terrible about it, and I've been doing everything I can since I really truly became aware of how awful I was to turn it around and be a better human being. So I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate you guys understanding.
Many years I was a racist. I didn't like blacks. They used to call me N-word and whatnot. And I come a point and realize there's some personal experiences. White people are racist. Not all of them. But white culture is. Our white country is. Our nation is. Our American culture is full of white supremacy. And we live in a white supremacist culture that caters to white people. Everything from the media to education to art to culture to politics is whitewashed. What is not whitewashed? As far as the status quo, as far as the dominant culture, everything's whitewashed. This country was built for white people. And it's time us Americans, us white Americans, came to terms with that and realized we're benefiting from that. We created slavery. We created a culture and a system of white supremacy that has benefited us for 400 years. You think maybe it's about time we stop being lazy as white people and take some fucking responsibility? Think outside of the fucking white box. Black people live it every fucking day. Brown people live it every fucking day. Think beyond your own fucking experience. Think beyond your own self. Imagine the privileges that you have just because of your fucking skin. I ain't saying you ain't suffered. We all suffer. Stop being defensive. What I'm saying is that we get certain privileges. We're not harassed by the police. Okay? We're not denied a house loan or denied to live in a neighborhood. We're not uncomfortable living in rural America. I'm not uncomfortable living in rural America, but I tell you what, a lot of black people don't even want to fucking drive through where I live. Why? Racist. We're fucking racist. So I'm not saying white people are bad. Stop being defensive. I'm saying take some fucking responsibility. All people are equal. God made us that way. Well, let's knock this fucking supremacy out of our fucking country. So I'm just saying, white America, wake up. Look in the fucking racial mirror and look at what we have done. Look at how we benefit. And let's do something about it. Let's speak up. Let's vote. Let's create legislation and policies to fight against this shit. Let's make things fair and equal. Let's take some responsibility and never, ever, ever ignore any form of racism that you see or experience or witness. Always speak up and act up. Please. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Joy and you're welcome back to the channel. So I came across this story about a white man who explained why he stopped being racist. He said he finally realized how much hate was controlling his life and how it was stopping him from seeing people as human beings. That moment of change is powerful, and today we are going to talk about it. Before we get into the video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to support the channel.
Why I stopped being a racist, part 1. I've been asked probably well over 1,000 times in the comments and messages why I chose to confront my own racism and my prejudice ideology. So I thought I'd just have an honest conversation with you and break it down over a few parts and let you see into the mind of someone like me, the way I grew up and the man I'm becoming. Now here's the crazy thing. I've only ever known one racist in my life for sure, and that's me, because I can't speak into the hearts and minds of another human being and what they think and feel. That's not fair, and that's prejudicial of me. So I'm the only one I've ever known, so I feel I can speak with authority about this. I'm not calling out other people who are. This is simply about my evolution and the things I confronted and some of the difficulties and some of the beautiful parts of this. This is not an easy thing for me to do. This is kind of laying my soul bare So if you would, let me know if this is something you want me to continue in the comments, please, because it's going to take a lot for me to invest emotionally to be open about this. Now, why is it I grew up with so much prejudice and bias and discrimination in my life? Well, I grew up in a small town in Arkansas, and I am Arkansas proud. Let me just say that right off the top. But I grew up with people who taught me these things, and it was instilled in me. I mean, it was just reinforced over and over. And then for the most part, I lived in an echo chamber of other people who thought the same thing. So I didn't know it was possible to think any other way. I was raised Christian. I cannot explain to you why my faith in God, my morality, and my racism took so long to cross paths. I can't explain it, but it probably took about 40 years to figure that out. There's a whole series of events in my life, I guess, ultimately that led up to this. And prison was probably one of the biggest catalysts, because when you're on 23-1 lockdown with someone of a different color from you in the same cell, you shut your mouth and you listen. You ask questions. And I had so many different cellmates from different countries, from different races and heritages. And it just really opened my mind. And sitting in prison, I had a lot of time to think. And I had some old timers tell me, I need to do my time. Don't let my time do me. And those are good words of advice. But I started digging deep into myself and my flaws, and because I was probably the biggest asshole I knew at that time, and I wasn't proud of that at all. And I knew I needed to change if I wanted to live a productive and healthy life and just be somebody likable. I just couldn't see the world for the way it really was. And that breaks my heart that it took me so long to see it. But the beauty that is born from this change in me, or this growth, is just crazy. God is amazing. So if you want me to continue this, let me know and I'll do a part 2.
So I'm hearing all these things about sports and the BLM this year, but what I'm not hearing is people open up the conversation to say, I used to be racist and I was racist and now I'm not racist.
That would make a blooming good phone-in, actually, wouldn't it?
So I personally used to be racist and now I'm not racist. And if I was to be penalised for that anywhere, my way of going around business would be to say, I used to be racist, and this was the journey I took, and this is why I'm not racist, and here I am, punish me or not.
So tell me your story then.
So I grew up, I'm 26, and I grew up in Blackpool, which is predominantly a white town, and as a child, what I saw on the media was this constant refugee story stuff, 9/11, all these stories, and people around me were racist, and I would hear these racist slurs, and it would be funny business, having a giggle. And as I've got older, I find it disgusting, because I've took a journey. When I've gone to university, I've gone to college, I've gone through life, and you meet people from different backgrounds, the history of who you are and where you've come from. You quickly learn that prejudice comes in many forms, and my ancestors some of them would have been prejudiced, and people keep all this council culture stuff. People are quick to come out and say, no, I'm not racist, but I'm not hearing anybody talk about the journey of why they're not racist anymore. It's all about, to me, having people experience people from different backgrounds and experience different things. You see, I think a lot of people aren't open to this dialogue because they get defensive and they've got careers to I don't know what you'd say it. You've got careers that they want to maintain. So they will never openly say, I used to be racist, and here's why I'm not now. To use my platform to open up dialogue to other people. So some people from my background are still racist, and sometimes it causes a bit of, when I hear these slurs, I pull a face and I say, no, I'm not having that. And you tackle it within your own community. And the only way you can properly do that is for people who are at higher ranking in your community to also come out and say openly, I'm not having it. But I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that.
And when you do that, what reaction do you get generally?
Well, people laugh at me. People laugh at me and they say, yes, you are racist. Yes, you are racist. And I'll say, well, tell me how I'm racist. Well, you were joking about this back then. And it's like, well, yes, I was. But now I understand, one, it's not funny, and two, it's not even right.
Why I Stopped Being a Racist, Part 3, White Guilt and Forgiveness. One of the most challenging things on this journey of trying to deconstruct my own racism is learning to forgive myself. That is a very difficult thing to do for most anybody, especially when it's a burden that you carry around so heavy that you don't know how to break it down. Again, these are my thoughts, my experiences, and my opinions only. And while I can't tell you how to learn to forgive yourself for something because it's different for everybody, it's absolutely crucial if you want to grow. I had to admit it to myself. I had to be accountable to myself. And then I had to put in the work. And that involves a lot of introspection, a lot of prayer. It's just something you can't take your foot off the gas of. You know what I mean? Forgiving myself doesn't absolve me of the things I've got to work out. Not by any stretch of the imagination, but until you forgive yourself, it's really hard to move forward. And the biggest thing I struggle with initially is what we call white guilt. And that looks different to probably everybody. Because I was really concerned, I spent a lot of time thinking about it and praying about it, because if I did this out of some sort of guilt, it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be sincere. And I realized and came to the conclusion, once I had forgiven myself, that I had thrown that yoke off me, now I'm just free to love. I'm just free to grow and be open-minded and experience all these new things with an open and transparent heart. Racism is not a switch you can flip on and off. It doesn't work that way. It's a long process that takes a lot of commitment. And in part 4, I'll talk about what does racism look like to a racist. Have a great day. Why did I want to stop being a racist, and why am I so passionate about HBCUs and Black American history? I get asked that all the time. Well, to tell the truth, it all started with a tiny little splinter in my finger. Now, I did a podcast the other night in Connecticut with a friend of mine named Ian Bick, and we were talking about my past and kind of where my life has gone. And he looked at me and he's like, "You mean to tell me a tiny little splinter in your finger completely and irrevocably changed the course of your life and put you on the path that you're on?" And I looked at Ian and I'm like, I never thought of that before. 23 years ago, I had gotten a splinter in my finger, and on that splinter was some bacteria that got into my bloodstream, and it stopped in my arm right there where there's a big scar, and it was called cellulitis. And my arm blew up really big, and I had to go in and have major surgery because it almost cost me my life. But they took a chunk of my arm out, and I had to wear a pump forever to get the infection out. It was a big old mess. Because the pain was so intense, they gave me hundreds and hundreds of pain pills for me to take to kind of negate the pain. But what they didn't tell me would happen is that I would form an addiction. Now, this was a pretty serious addiction to pain pills, and it went on for about 10 years. And I was able to afford to feed my habit for a long time until the recession hit. And I no longer could, and I started committing crimes to feed my addiction. It got that bad. I was taking a ton of pills every day. And my horrible choices landed me in prison. I spent 3 years total there for this. And it was in prison where God started to pull back the veil from my eyes. I couldn't see that at the time. I remember, I met people from all different cultures and backgrounds. A lot of guys couldn't read, and I would get books out of the library and read them, and then I would retell the stories to them, trying to entertain and educate them at the same time. Not knowing this is just kicking off a love of history, especially Black American history, that I didn't know I had. And when I got out of prison, I went about the task of rebuilding my life, which is challenging to say the least. I got my CDL, got into a truck. But I guess it's when I started back in society and I started to look at the world differently. I had a lot more empathy in my heart. I was way more open-minded. And I started to realize so much of what I've been told was a lie. And my character was flawed. And with introspection and time, I started to see these things and notice the world wasn't like I thought it was. It wasn't equal, it wasn't fair, and it wasn't just. And it's hard to explain, when God gets a hold of you and you're on a path that, as I begin to change and evolve, it was all internal, right? It wasn't something I spoke about. But ironically, when I started making TikTok videos, I did one of like science experiments. They went viral. And then I told the story of John H. Johnson, who founded Jet and Ebony magazine, and that went viral. And I realized I had a lot more of these stories that I knew and loved. And this just, as I started doing it and I started looking at more and more historical figures, HBCUs were a common thread, these historically black colleges and universities. And something clicked in my head. I don't know what, but it was like I bit this bone. And I went down this rabbit hole of just beauty and amazing history. And I started to realize how interconnected our world truly is. And to quote Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. And I couldn't stay silent any longer. I just had this love and joy in my heart. And it's taken me on this amazing and incredible path. I'm sitting here in a hotel in Hampton, Virginia, about to visit Hampton University tomorrow, which I'm just ecstatic to get to do. I wanted to visit Hampton for so long because of Booker T. Washington. And I'm getting to. I get to meet the most incredible and amazing people. I'm the turd in the punch bowl everywhere I go. I'm a direct beneficiary of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, because sometimes I'm the only white face around and I'm accepted with love and grace and mercy. It's one of the reasons I'm such a strong proponent of DEI. And I say all this to tell you that none of it would have happened had I not gotten that tiny little splinter in my finger. Have a great day.
Honestly, hearing stories like this gives me hope because racism is something that is taught. Nobody is born with hate in their heart. When people decide to unlearn it, it shows growth and courage. For me, the most important part of this story is that change starts with awareness. He realized racism wasn't just hurting others, it was also destroying him inside. That's something a lot of people don't want to admit. My opinion is this: if one person can stop being racist after years of hate, then others can too. But it takes honesty, self-reflection, and willingness to see people for who they truly are, not for the color of their skin. And I think we should keep sharing these stories because they remind us that change is possible. Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.